Mouth has been erased, and because of that, we have a chapter with no dialogue whatsoever. Obviously, it is driven entirely by its artwork, and it does a great job at doing that. However, I do have some questions. Recently we were told that humanity would evolve. Humans would change or adapt to the things that were erased, right? So in terms of Mouth being in a world that can't communicate verbally, do they communicate spiritually, mentally? Is there something that has taken its place to eat and digest food? Do they photosynthesize from the sun? What are we doing here? The reason that I mention this is that I feel like there is a odd amount of communication going on within this chapter with teamwork. Now, sure, you could look at someone doing something and then willfully put yourself in their same position to aid them. However, perhaps it seems a little bit more complex than that. There seems to be an element of teamwork and understanding between at least War and Katana Man. Even the civilians that attack chainsawman in this chapter seem more coordinated than randomly put together. It's a weird argument to make that doesn't really have much of a foundation, but it does make me think. From the previous information that we got to the showcase that we get now, perhaps there is more here in terms of communication, in terms of digesting, because we do see what would also be a piece of sushi. At least that's kind of what it looks like. The assumption that I have made is that War has taken a piece of sushi and turned it into a weapon. Perhaps it is something else just based on the angle and the perspective being a little bit weird. It's difficult to tell. She was coming from a place of sushi, so I'm led to believe that that's where she got the weapon from. Consumption, right? How do you eat a piece of sushi if you don't have a mouth? Again, this has been kind of explained to us that humanity evolves, humans change, and the world moves on in some type of way. I don't want to think about where that sushi potentially goes, but maybe you might. Speaking of desperation, I didn't think Katana Man and War, of all people, would have a pseudo team. Mind you, it's not the most energetic, it's not the most advanced, it's not even the most tactical, but they have something, at least, and I guess that's better than nothing. Surprisingly, their work seems like it's rotating around the aging devil, but I'm going to boil that up to a mere coincidence. I don't think Katana Man nor War are working with public safety to such a length where they have that type of very valuable information to work with. Also, I do think they're just taking advantage of the situation to get what they want. Of course, this doesn't end well, especially for Katana Man. I feel like this man gets bullied every single time, and it's mostly because his ego overshadows his logic. He tries, even aging tries. War comes down from above as well, but they all get obliterated. Now, originally, I thought because of the aging hands that came in from either side like a pincer attack, that Chainsaw Man erased them from existence, mostly because you see Katana Man then War not having their arms. I don't think this is the case, only because we see Chainsaw Man after, and he still has his hands attached to his chainsaws. We know it affects him as well. So if he found a way to erase certain things without using his mouth or digestion, it would appear on his body as well, similar to mouth disappearing. It has not happened here. Instead, what we do get is a struggle from War. And this is where Fujimoto's facial expressions really shine. They carry a lot of the chapter, carry a lot of that emotion, obviously. I'd imagine it's difficult to be in a position where you can't actually use dialogue. Even if you wanted to, even if you needed to, the semantics of the situation don't really allow it. And it looks goofy. It looks a little bit weird not seeing anyone have a mouth or lips or anything. Like, it's funny, but all of their energy is converted into their face, their frown, their eyebrow movement, eye movement, nose scrunching, like small, intricate little bits and pieces all coming together. And this is what Fujimoto excels at, to show desperation, to show anger, to show sadness, to show anything. For a chapter with zero dialogue, there is a lot of beautiful moments within here. The ones that I love is when War and Chainsaw Man are face to face. They're just looking at each other. War is now armless, and it begs the question if she will ever get those arms back. How is that going to happen? We need Chainsaw Man to throw up mouth, but how do you get him to throw up something without a mouth? Do you tear him apart? Do you go through the umbilical cord that goes into his stomach lining? What do we do here? The rest of the story cannot continue with the idea of War being armless. We need her to heal in some regard. And originally I thought that would come sooner than later. I didn't think she would always have one arm. I always thought that she would figure out that healing is a possibility whether Asa approved of it or not. All she needs to do is drink some sort of blood and she's going to heal right back up. now that we're in that zone and it being a little bit more desperate, you can see the cogs conforming together. In saying that, there is a very vulnerable moment in here. War takes a knee, very desperately so. And it paints the hero of hell, it paints Chainsaw in this kind of godly light, like a follower, like a worshipper. And we know this is a possibility, we know this happens. I just wonder what it means for war. I'm also curious how Pochita technically sees it. How does the hero of hell perceive people that worship him, that kneel down in front of him, knowing that they don't stand a chance? I don't think this is what War wants, and it's based on the final panel, which is kind of horrifying. It's definitely a panel that we have never seen drawn for War before. She looks scared, but it also looks like she's perhaps leading into a flashback. As on the side we have a white leading into a cascading black, almost to indicate the flashback transition, or at the minimum something happening. Now that is a safe bet, a safe gamble already, but it does make me curious what the operation is here, what the go is for this. We know public safety have everything on standby and are trying to do a lot of different things. Mouth has to come back, logically, for the story to continue anyway, and I'd imagine the moments where it's most vital is right here. Who arrives, what happens to Chainsaw Man right in front of Asa and War. Now, like I said before, there is one person that we have not seen who is probably struggling the most right now because they don't have a mouth and can't gouge themselves with food. Fami. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what their plan is. We don't know what's possible from them, but we know that there's ulterior motives. We know that there's more to Fami than anything that we have ever seen, and perhaps this whole time she's been preparing, perhaps getting into a position that works so she can spawn something. The idea to starve Chainsaw Man is incredibly interesting, and if there was anybody that could take control of the hero of hell, it would be Fami. Public safety are running out of hitters to actually do anything, but we still don't really know what they're trying to do. We understand the idea of them erasing aging and getting humans to evolve, etc. But again, going back on those certain implications, mouth has been erased. That has to come back up first, right? So perhaps they are hoping, maybe even praying, maybe even working very closely with Fami for her to spawn some sort of primal fear, whether it be gravity again or fall, to put the hero of hell in a position of deadlock. And realistically, that's all that has to be done. Fami doesn't necessarily have to fight Chainsaw Man. She just has to put him in a position where he can't escape. Now, that's easier said than done. But if there is a way to conceal him in a room, in a place, in a space potentially, that has no exits, that can't be cut through physically, and more importantly, that Chainsaw Man doesn't perceive as being a threat, they might actually get somewhere. And I emphasize that last point because the only reason Chainsaw Man or the hero of hell will attack is if he perceives them as a threat. The humans are a great example of someone that he won't just willingly kill unless they are genuinely in his way and attack first, usually. Clearly, he can perceive threats that are about to happen to him, of course, but the ones that are a bit more ominous, like general humans with some spears, he's not going to see anything. So he acts very casual in front of them. His choice of movement and speed and attack capability varies drastically, and I think that's important to at least recognize, because you go from him not caring about the humans to killing them because they attacked him to defending himself because aging, Katana Man and War all attacked him at once. But then when he's approaching War now, it's a slow walk. I think he even stops to look at her. He does not annihilate everyone on the spot. He does not speed blitz through everyone. He does not do anything drastic. He just takes his time. He chooses. And for me, perhaps it shows that Pochita is more than just a killing machine. Sure, he's got the power, he's got everything under his belt, but there's choice, there's flexibility, there's availability, there's different things that Pochita has, and we've seen what those different things are. When those small trinkets, chasing of dreams come out to play, way. I don't know what Pochita's goal is now. Maybe he's searching, maybe he's wandering, looking for any remnants of Naoyuta. And if we run down that idea, if there's any way to contain him, to lure him to a position, or even just to understand his motives a little bit more, it would be Naoyuta. Using her, using the image of her, using the idea of her even. Somewhere, somehow, this has to give. Whether he's about to get jumped again, or somehow War is about to give us a flashback or connect with him on some level. It is a horrifying panel. Easily one of the best that we have gotten from War. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I'm also very curious on how long we go without any sort of dialogue.